Welcome to PLZ Soccer's football show, sponsored by Indigo Communications. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Ruff and Alison McConnell are here with me, and we're delighted that you could join us today after the technical hitches of yesterday and, of course, the departure of Ruffy. We were really worried about him, wasn't too well, but thankfully, Ruffy, you're back to full fitness or half fitness?
Half fitness, but I couldn't let you down after I heard the champions yesterday.
That's brilliant.
No, I wasn't feeling well yesterday. There's not very many times I miss a show, but there was no way. It wouldn't have been good viewing me just sitting with a big bucket beside me.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we're delighted you're here. Isn't it great to know that he's such a pro that he didn't want to let us down after. And Ali, you'll never believe this, he's very rarely missed a show. I
think we should still have our masks on, maybe. Yeah. I don't know if I fancy taking a wee bit of that.
Well, not only that, but what was even worse is the fact that Tam really enjoyed sitting in that seat. McManus has got your number, by the way. It's incredible. Thank you to so many of you who join us on the show. Bob Miller, Keith Fife, Errol Campbell, Paul Baird, Catherine Kelly, Stuart Ramsey. There are so many: Hugh Scott, Paul Beattie, Joseph McGonigal, Nicky Twig, to name but a few, who have joined us right on the button. And they've hit the subscribe button, many of them a long time ago. And of course, I think Frank Green has really summed it up perfectly when he says Madrid was just too much for Ruffy, and he's probably picked up a wee bug. And that's what happens, because sometimes you can pick up a bug, Ali, if you have 8 double brandies. It can affect you. It can have a, and you think I'm kidding. It can affect you. And one of my mates sent me a message this morning, and he said, by the way, I was listening to your shows in Madrid. Was Ruffy bladdered out of his head? He sounded dismal at one point. You did sound rough the day after.
Oh, the day afterwards. Yeah. The day afterwards.
Lack of professionalism.
I blame that wee waitress. She was out of order. She just keep bringing the bottle over.
Yeah.
And when she said, do you want another one? She went, really?
Now, can I just say to you, she didn't say really because she couldn't speak a word of English, but every time he ordered a drink, he tried to chat to her, and he thought that if he chatted slowly, Alison, the Spanish girl would understand him. It was straight out of a Touroni sketch, honestly. And thanks to Robert Rowan, he says, Ruffy rarely missed a show. He's always on holiday. It's a very good point, Robert. I forgot all about that as well. 4 holidays a year. And Stuart Ramsey says, Tam, I thought he won a watch yesterday. Watch your back. That's all he's saying, because he was on top form, opinionated, straight in there, didn't shilly-shally about it all, and just puff it all out. Tam was straight in there. Let's see how we get on today when we're calling for your manager's head at Partick Thistle. And on that note, well done to the news that we're going to talk about today. Dougie Emery, Manager of the Month. Well done, Dougie. I like Dougie. He's a great lad. We'll be talking about Hampden. Could be in line for £24 million worth of investment. That's, of course, if the UK and Ireland get Euro 2028. Jim Duffy's the new manager of Clyde. Jason Cummings is included in the Australian World Cup squad. What a transformation in his life. And over and above that, there's some bad news. Tom Rogic is not in the Australia squad, and Matt O'Reilly is not included in the Denmark squad. So that's just some of the news. Jim Goodwin says it's time to get rid of AstroTurf pitches in the Scottish Premiership, and he also defends Luis Lopez, or Duck as he's known. He says Duck is no diver, so you can give us your view on that as well. And of course, the ongoing situation, quite simply, is that we'll be hearing from Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. He's under pressure. A slip up against Hearts, could that be the beginning of the end for him if there is any slip up at Ibrox? We'll be asking Ali and Ruffy on that. And let's start with Rangers, because they are the hot topic on this one. Rangers against Hearts is a massive game because everybody's watching and talking about it.
Yeah, I do think if there's another slip, I think it becomes very difficult to keep going. I think you've not seen any encouraging signs. I think you could, if you look at Celtic last time, I think at one point they were 6 behind, but I think there was an element of encouragement within the performances. It was a very cobbled together side. You knew that there were going to be reinforcements coming in January. You could see the ethos behind that team. You could see that he was trying to underpin it with a certain way of playing. You could see that there was progress, or attempted progress, being made. I don't know that you can make that case just now for Rangers. I think too many big players just haven't contributed at all. I think Ryan Kent, you've not seen this season. really, I can't think of anything where he's been hugely influential in a game, where he's come up with something that's won the game, made the difference in a game. I think Alfredo Morelos and the condition that he's in is appalling for any professional footballer. To be in a position where he doesn't look match fit at this point in the season is unacceptable. And I think it's inevitable that if there's any more slips, I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst comes under intolerable pressure.
Yeah, and with that, Ruffy, I mentioned yesterday, and I'll stand by my guns on this. I think the way things are going, there are pivotal moments and significant lines in the sand where Rangers fans are looking and saying, well, wait a minute, 2 games before the end of the campaign so far and the break for the World Cup, I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst will limp towards the World Cup break, and then they'll look and say, okay, he's had a few players that have not been in the side. Let's wait to see if the injuries get back and he's got a change in fortunes, because, of course, we're all waiting on December 6th to see what the AGM unfolds with.
Yeah, but I think crucially, as Alison said there, the results in these 2 games coming up, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but 2 defeats would I would think make people make up their decisions a lot earlier. I think he will try and limp towards it. He's got a semi-final next year to play for. I just think his team selection's all over the place. In the Champions League games, he plays Arfield and he plays Davis for the start, but none of them are good enough to start against St Johnstone. Decisions like that, it just seems to be, he can't find the right 11. He doesn't know who the right 11 are, and you can tell by his body language standing at the trackside when a goal goes in. He seems confused of how to change it.
Yeah, well, our reporter Kerry Pollock was out there at Auchenhowie at the training centre for the press conference today.
Thanks, Peter. I'm here outside Rangers training ground this afternoon, where Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has been speaking to the press after their defeat to St Johnstone on Sunday. They are now 7 points behind Celtic in the league table and having just won 1 of their last 5 fixtures. The game tomorrow against Hearts is becoming increasingly more important. The manager says he's aware that some of the fans might want a change in the managerial seats, and says it's difficult when all you're trying to do is bring success to a football club and you can't bring it.
Well, it's hardly not to be aware of it. I don't live in a basement, so it's, for me, it's obviously, it's for everyone to see, for myself as well. The only thing is I can focus on my performance, with the team, and to focus on winning games. That's all that matters. I know how it works in football. I'm 47. I've been here for many years to know how it works. So for me, that's not a problem at all.
Well, if we're being blunt about it, I think 7 points is too much for Rangers to try and claw back on Celtic, because you always balance this whole future of a manager on what's happening with your biggest rivals. And when your biggest rivals are continually turning the screw and show no signs of slipping up again, they look as if after that blip against St Mirren, they are in that zone, then he becomes increasingly under pressure. Now, if you looked at it in a broader sense, Ali, you'd say, well, wait a minute, this guy's actually got a team, inherited a team, he's taken them all the way to the Europa League final. Should that buy him some time? But right now, I think the Rangers fans, I didn't see anger, I saw apathy after the St Johnstone result.
Yeah, I think there is an argument to say that there should be credit in the bank after getting to the Europa League final, but I think the reality of any managerial situation, particularly in Glasgow, comes down when the fans turn. It's very, very difficult to get that, to turn the tide back again. And I think you saw it with Neil Lennon a couple of years back just now. You saw what happened in the run-up through that December, and then going into January when they were still faltering. You see the ire that it provokes, you see the increase in anger. I think you did see some anger on Saturday. I think you saw it. There have been glimpses of it this season. I think it was visible after the St Johnstone defeat. And I think unless you see a very rapid turnaround in terms of the tempo, in terms of the performance level, in terms of results, then I think that it doesn't dissipate. It's very, very difficult. Once the genie's out the bottle with that, it's very difficult to put it back in. And there is nothing that would compel you at the minute to say that there is any evidence that it could be turned around.
Well, James Tavernier obviously putting a brave face on this when everybody's actually hovering around what they sense is, everybody baying for blood. The captain is rolled out, and he said they're going to try and win every game. Nice words, but has to back it up with actions.
Yeah, I think we all know that's not going to happen. You know, it might happen sometimes in a season, but not in the way that Rangers are playing at this precise moment in time. There's a frailty in that side, you know, against St Johnstone for 15, 20 minutes. They were the team that looked as if they were going to win the game, but as soon as that boy hit that shot and it hit the back of the net, you could see the pressure then mounting in certain players in the Rangers team. And it's not the first time it's happened. When you play with a massive team like Rangers, you've got to be able to handle that kind of situation, and it doesn't look as if some of the players have been in that situation before, playing in front of a large crowd and the demands of playing with Rangers, and the heads go down a wee bit and then they start to struggle.
Yeah, and Fashion Sakala is out with a muscle injury, and that's just the latest in a long line over the course of the campaign so far that they've been denied certain players. I think the Rangers fans would have liked to have seen more signings coming in of a higher standard, and certainly of the players that have been signed. There's not a lot of them that have made a contribution, Ali, and I think all of that, it's not just about, as Ruffy mentioned there, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst may be confused about what's his best team. There's a background to it as well with his staff and the signings. Recruitment's not been great. So all of these things and that complex reason is why Rangers find themselves 7 points behind. Yeah,
I think they stagnated over the summer. I think they didn't reinvest in the squad. I think you had the nucleus of a very strong side. You had the spine of a side that got to a European final. They lost the league, but there wasn't a huge distance between the two sides. I think you could have made an argument that there wasn't a massive difference in the two squads in May. I think Celtic have invested. I think Celtic have a bigger pool. I think this season they have a depth in squad, Celtic, that maybe they didn't have this time a year ago. I think the big difference for me has been what both teams have done in the transfer market. I think you have seen Celtic go out, recruit well. The players that they've brought in, not everyone, but by and large, you would say Ange Postecoglou signings have been impactful. They've come in, there's been a first team contribution made by and large. I'm not sure you could say the same thing for the guys that Rangers brought in over the summer. But what I think is particularly noticeable, and it was very noticeable at the weekend at McDermott Park, is the atmosphere around the squad. Now, Peter, you and I have seen this for many, many years. When they go behind, like as they did on Sunday, there are no leaders on the pitch. There is an atmosphere of defeat. There is an atmosphere of inevitability about that result. There was a very, very brief rally when Tavernier pulled one back, but it dissipated very quickly. And I think that would be the biggest concern if you're Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, is that there's no fight in that squad and there are no leaders on the pitch. Yeah, because,
the proof's in the pudding. If Rangers go behind in a game, you start to worry. If Celtic go behind in a game, you're looking at your clock and thinking, I wonder when the 2 or 3 goals are coming. That's the situation and the contrast between the Saturday and the Sunday. Dundee United equalised with 3 minutes to go. Celtic won with another 2-goal margin. Rangers, on the other hand, go down 2 goals and you're thinking, I don't think they're going to get back into this. There are contrasting opinions, and we like to try and vary it and offer as many opinions as possible on this. Jimmy Duff says Celtic aren't as good as all you so-called pundits make out. They lost to St Mirren, struggled against St Johnstone and Dundee United, and that was with all their stars. Rangers are playing with a full team injured, says Jimmy. Ronnie Porter also is a regular contributor, says Peter is a Rangers fan. Gio keeps playing the same defensive, deliberate square ball passing football. It's very boring and frustrating to watch, but we all know Gio won't change his tactical style. There is a real difference. There's a difference between the way they play, the way they go about their business. Before, I always felt, especially in the Europa League run, Ruffy, I felt as if Rangers had certainly Europe down to a T in the way they played, and they could get up the park and and on the counter could really score some crucial goals as they displayed. But domestically, I didn't see it. I didn't see it at the tail end of last season. I certainly don't see it this season.
No, because you're relying on Ryan Kent. You're relying on big players doing something special, and none of them have done anything. I would agree with a wee bit with the chap thing we did there. They're minus their best centre half, Golson. They're minus Ryan Jack. They're minus Roof. They're minus. Yeah. And you would have to say if all these guys were fit, they'd be better, but they're not fit. And with a team like that, you've got to have surplus to come in and at least try and do it, not equally as good as them, but as good as. But that hasn't been the case. There's nobody come in and went, wow, what about him? Tillman comes in, he does a wee bit here and a wee bit there, then he falls out again, he gets hurt, taken off, and it's just. But I would love to know how many of them actually that are in the team on and off do 90 minutes in a game, and I don't think there'll be that many.
Yeah, well, the other thing about it, which is going to be interesting, and I think the Rangers fans who look at this in the broader sense and say, okay, Gio's under pressure, his head's on the chopping block if there's any slip-ups, but there are Rangers fans out there who are looking further afield and saying, look, the board, and they're asking questions, and December 6th is coming, quickly, and I think they'll get a greater sense of what's been happening with the money. I think we've all, on countless occasions on this programme, Ali, mentioned that everybody's got to get weighed in. Everybody who put their money in when Rangers needed it most have to get that money back at some point, and there are lots of costs in there I think will become all too evident. I wonder, I would not be surprised if it's the 10th consecutive year of losses.
I think it'll be a very interesting AGM, and we have spoken about this before, Peter, but if you have a winning team on the park, everything and anything is forgiven that goes on around a club and behind the scenes. You can do anything, doesn't matter. If you have a winning team, everything is hunky-dory. Similarly, the converse is true. The minute that results slip and the minute that you're 7 points behind your rivals, there is a spotlight on every element of the club, and I think you can anticipate that next month at the EGM. I think supporters are right to ask questions. I think you look at the lack of investment this summer and you look at a squad that got to a European final and all of a sudden they're playing the way they are. I appreciate when you mention all the players that they're without, they are big losses, but you have to be able to compensate for that when you're at a big club. If you look at Celtic, they've coped without Callum McGregor, arguably their most pivotal player, their perennial player, a guy who's a 55 to 60 game a season, every season. They coped without Carl Starfelt, one of the mainstays of their defence last term. There's been Cameron Carter-Vickers was out for a bit. Big clubs recruit so that you have a pool of players that you can compensate when you don't have your favoured starting 11 there, and I think there'll be big questions asked over that. There'll be questions asked over the scouting around the club, the inability. If you look at some of the money that was spent this summer on the players that did come in, hasn't been particularly well spent. If you think for the resources that you've parted with, could you have got better value for money? I think that's a question that you'll be asking, but I think it goes to the very top, and I think it could be an incredibly uncomfortable morning for many of those that are sitting at the top table at that EGM next month.
I think a lot of them will start to look and say, well, of all the money that came in, where has it been distributed, Ruffy? And I think they will have to bite the bullet. Not that Rangers as a board are, it's not as if it's some clandestine, hiding behind certain figures. Everybody has to be paid, and that's the simple fact of the matter. When you've got so many costs and people who've contributed to the club, they all have to be at some point weighed in. I don't know, unless you're going to tell me differently, Ruffy, you might have actually the answer here, but I don't know anybody that puts 1 million, 2 million, 3 million upwards into a club and doesn't expect it back. And the only one I can think of is Colin Weir at Partick Thistle. I mean, no, but I'm talking about big businesses.
Well, yeah, the difference between Colin Weir and the people who put money into Rangers is they're investors, and investors invest for profit.
Yeah.
And they're obviously, when you put in 4 or 5 million, you're wanting to know what the deal is at the end of the day. You don't mind supporting the club, and I have to congratulate everybody who did throw their money into the club to take Rangers where they went to. They got to a final of the Europa, so they deserve a pat in the back. They threw everything at it to win the league, but at the end of the day, I think they'll look at all the money that's went out plus the money that's come in, and they'll have to have the right answers at that day, because they've sold a lot of players. Patterson, a lot of money for him, Bassey and another couple of others, plus the money that we were told they earned in the Europa. I don't know what that figure was. Was it about 30 million, was it?
No, it wasn't as high as that.
20, something like that.
It was substantial.
It was substantial. I don't think it was 30.
60, 70 million income No,
Yes.
you've got to account for that somewhere.
Let's not forget also that of all the investors, and I'm talking about the individual wealthy ones, the ones who really have stepped up to the plate are the Rangers fans. Because if it's not the season tickets, which is the greatest part of their backing, it's been investing in the strips, everything that's been going, they've been there to show their support for it, and continually over this 12 years. So I think from that point of view, that's why they'll be looking at it and scouring over the figures and seeing what's been happening with it. But lots of people have to be paid, and individuals, because Rangers quite openly have said, there are no banks that are giving them credit, so they had to get the money from somewhere over the years, and now that they've gone through a period of winning the league, getting to a Europa League final, maybe the expectation from the fans and the reality of the money again is slightly imbalanced. Hugh Scott says, Peter, I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst will get until the World Cup is over to see if a couple of the injured players are back, and a lot is hinging on the next Old Firm game. And the last thing that can happen, Ali, with the two games coming and then that hectic period in December,
crazy.
It's a crazy period. The last thing that Rangers can afford is going into the game at Ibrox any further back than 7 points. 7 points is not without the possibility of clawing some of that back.
Even if it stays at 7 points, that game feels like a last chance saloon game already. You think, if there was to be any kind of slip, the pressure is huge on Rangers in that game. The Celtic are in the driving seat going there. If you've got a 7 point lead, you know that there's no tension around what you do. You come away with a point, you're laughing essentially. The pressure will be on Rangers to go and try and win that game. They maybe fancy themselves with the backing of their own support, but crucially, before you get there, you cannot afford to lose further ground. If you make the decision to stay and gamble on getting a successful outcome in that game and you fail, where does it leave you? At what point of the season? These are the questions that you have to ask yourself just now. Or do you make the decision before you get there in the hope of galvanising something, getting a last throw of the dice and all of a sudden energising your season, getting into the second half of the campaign? I think there's an argument to say if you wait until that point in January, there's a danger you leave it too late.
Yeah, okay. Rangers against Hearts. I've got Rangers to win 2-1 narrowly. And let's not forget, as we talk about their crisis, Hearts are a side that, I thought it was a great line yesterday from Andy Halliday. He says, if I'm looking for a new contract, I think I might put a goals bonus in it, because he's got 4 in the last 4 games. Hearts, are they capable of coming to Glasgow and causing a problem with a side that's under pressure?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they've got certain players in there, but I might be like you, and I've said this all along, when the chips are down, 9 times out of 10 the big clubs come up with some kind of performance. They did it the last time. I can't remember who it was, they beat 4-1 or something like that.
Aberdeen.
They come up with the goods, and I think they'll come up with the goods as well. I think they have to come up with the goods. I don't think the support will accept anything less. I don't even think they'll accept a draw. We've seen when things aren't going particularly well, and I've said this on numerous occasions, the fans are leaving the stadium far, far too early. They're not hanging on in to see if they can be like Celtic and get 2 goals in the last 2 minutes. They've just seen enough, and when they've seen enough, they leave. They're not staying with the team, which I think is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I've got them to win. I think it's 2-1. I've got 2-0 or 2-1.
2-0 or 2-1. Okay. Ali, the one thing that I think a lot of Hearts fans would be delighted about when I was reading the evening news in Edinburgh is quite simply the money that they're going to get from their Europa Conference League campaign is going to be substantial. That's going to get into the coffers. In the January transfer window, you would expect Hearts to be able to add a few faces because they really want to finish third again.
Absolutely. I think Robbie Neilson will be hoping for a sizable chunk of that to go and reinvest in his squad. I don't think you want to stand still. I think having had a taste of that Conference League, a taste of European football, I'm sure they'll want to do it again, and financially the club will be desperate to do it again because of the obvious rewards that it brings. So I think you would expect them to reinvest. In terms of tomorrow night's game, I think it's a free hit for Hearts. I think no one really expects them to go ahead and do anything. I think if you were in their position, you would be wanting to make the crowd as anxious as possible. You'd be wanting to invite that pressure on to Rangers, and I think you would want to go and try and have a go. I would agree with Ruffy to a certain extent. I think sometimes you see a rallying when you need to. Other times, I think when it's sliding and when it's going, I think it can be the final nail in a coffin. I think Celtic played Hibs, if you remember that ill-fated trip to Dubai. They come back with 13 COVID cases or whatever, and played Hibs, and I'm sure Hibs got a draw that night, a late goal, and it just felt like a very slippery slope. And sometimes when that atmosphere is prevalent around a club, then I think sometimes teams can manipulate it and use it to their advantage.
So what have you gone for?
1 each.
You've gone for 1 each.
I think there might be a draw tomorrow night.
And Hugh McDonald has gone for his 13th 1-1 draw for Rangers. I think he's just resigned himself. He's taking us all out for a meal.
Oh, I won't complain about that, because I think I'm toiling somewhere around about that end. But I just think Hearts have been a different beast the last few weeks. I think it's a game where they'll want to go and ask questions of Rangers. It'll be interesting. I think if nothing else, it'll be an interesting evening.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, if you're not at Ibrox, you'll certainly be keeping your eye closely on it. At Fir Park, it's Motherwell against Celtic. We're talking about transfers, about recruitment. Ange Postecoglou has been working tirelessly to make sure that everything will be done and dusted as early as possible in January.
We've already sort of done our planning and kind of know what we need to do. So, but at the same time, obviously we're going to be fairly sort of alert right up until the window opens. So it does give me time. But the reality of it is I don't do the bulk of that work. The bulk of that work's been done by marketing well in his department, and I sort of come in at the tail end when we get the right ones we identify.
Yeah, I'll paraphrase that for you because there's bad audio coming from Celtic on that. Not our technology this time around. He sounded like somebody out of a Doctor Who movie. But basically, all the work he wants it done as early as possible, and they've actually, pinpointed the players they want, and now it's all about just crossing the T's, dotting the I's.
Yeah, it's just one of the things that's changed at Celtic. Before it used to be when January came, everybody would be standing outside Parkee waiting in the marquee signing at 12 o'clock at night to see who it was going to be. Was it going to be a Roy Keane or a Juninho or whoever?
Yeah.
That's changed now. It's players for the future. It's not just players for January to the end of the season, and that can only be good. And I think all the fans are always like a January window. They always like to see new players coming in. So exciting times if he pulls off the right players. Yeah,
and if you listen to him over the last couple of weeks, Ali, somebody could be going out.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. His comments about don't get too used to these guys and don't get too attached to your favourite players, because the sign of a successful team is a continual evolution, and you bring them in, you sell them, you reinvest the money, you keep going, and it's an interesting concept. The idea that you could sell and then spend bigger and recruit Champions League ready players, more experienced players to come in and elevate your standard is an interesting one. I think where it hits the buffers for the likes of Celtic and Rangers isn't on transfer fees and spending money to bring in players, but salary expectations. I think that's where you hit your natural ceiling in Scottish football, and I do wonder if that is something that becomes a source of frustration at some point.
Well, it will do, because what happens is about 2 or 3 years into it, we've chipped away at them that much that they get hacked off, then they start fighting with us, then everybody calls it, you've got an agenda against them, and then eventually somebody from down south offers them more money. I've been in this movie about 7 or 8 times.
And if it was a player to move on in January, who would be your tip?
I think Matt O'Reilly's maybe caught the eye of some people. I think he's still only 21, I think. 22, maybe 21. He's had a very impactful time since he went to Celtic 12 months ago. I think he might be one.
I think one of the I think Ideguchi will go, but I think Maeda or Kyogo. I mean, I know people are looking and saying, no way he'll sell Kyogo, but I mean, Kyogo at the level in the Champions League, they need somebody to score goals, Ali, and that Giacomakis apart, who worked hard for his goal, they don't have anything up front that would put the frighteners on anybody. They do domestically, but they don't in Europe. And I think Ange Postecoglou, if he still remains at Celtic, that's his driving force. He wants to try and at least get to a knockout stage, as every previous Celtic manager that's managed it, it's been that kind of a holy grail. Here's the ceiling, can I get there? And I think that's his driving force on it. So, I mean, listen, some people will go off, there's no way Kyogo's going, but
I think he would sell anyone. I think he's entirely unsentimental about the squad, and I think if the finances were right, I think he would absolutely take an offer for anyone. I think the caveat is that he would want an assurance that he's allowed to reinvest in the playing squad if he allows someone to go. But I don't think there's anyone you would look at and say they're unsellable at Celtic.
Yeah, I'll tell you one guy I feel sorry for because it just hasn't worked out for him. James McCarthy's picked up a very significant hamstring injury in training, so he's I don't think he'll see, if he does see anything, it'll be the latter part of the season. Again, because after the hamstring, you've got to try and get back to fitness again. Hasn't worked out for him. Disappointment. He's been one of those signings that really hasn't worked out. As far as Motherwell are concerned, they've also been in a situation where they were hoping that they could bring in Louis Moult and he'd score a barload of goals and recreate what he did first time around. A couple of weeks ago, certainly Stephen Hamill had a bit of frustration in his voice when I attended one of the press conferences about his lack of fitness and readiness for the first team, and it's continued. He's just come back in, and the manager gave me a real sense this morning that they're going to have to cover him in cotton wool at times because, you know, he's fragile.
It's been quite frustrating with Louis. Yeah, we understand I agree with him when he says he's got, his all round games improved and he's an all round player. He's someone we need. We also need to manage him. He's somebody that we need to be careful with in terms of three games in a week, 3 games in 6 days, especially with his, the lack of work he's done building up to this, which we would have liked to have been a little bit more. But I think even when you seen him in the Hearts game, what he brought good energy to us. I think he gave us a lift and impact. He helped the team round about him, so it was a good impact. And yeah, nobody wants to see him out in that grass more than myself. I can assure you that. Yeah,
Louis Moult certainly, when he's on form, Ruffy, is a real bonus. Another blow to them is the fact that Paul McGinn looks as if he's picked up an injury. They're waiting on the results of a scan, but certainly from the manager this morning talking to us, he suggested that this one could be a bad one. Stephen O'Donnell gets his opportunity to go in. The manager said the only reason he's not in is because of McGinn's good form. And he'll be looking to Louis Moult to try and do something. It's 1 win in the last 6 games against a side that have only been defeated by St Mirren this season.
Yeah, I mean, Louis Moult did look quite fresh when he came on. He did, as the manager said, give them a bit of energy. He looks passionate enough that he wants to be at Motherwell. I think he's got a lot of people there who, round about his family and everything. He wants to be there, he wants to do well. But sometimes you get players like that who do pick up injuries, wee niggles more than other players. And if he's one of them, then you know what's going to happen. I'm sure if we remember, Lee Griffiths was picking up every calf injury that was going about or every wee nick. And some players, when they get to that age, that's unfortunately what happens. And one thing, you don't want somebody telling you after the game is we're sending you for a scan. Because 9 times out of 10 a scan's bad news. Yeah, absolutely. The one other key element of this, Ali, is the previous game where Celtic, absolutely dismantled Motherwell at Fir Park only a few weeks ago in the Cup. It was quite simply because Motherwell wanted to play football. I mean, you play football, open football against Celtic, you're asking for it.
Yeah, I think they competed maybe for half an hour or so and then Celtic just accelerated away from them. I think you could make a comparison with how Celtic play in Europe. You can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to assert their authority on the game. They're trying to play to their own principles. I think the danger of that when you're playing against better players is that you can be picked off and you can be on the back of a fairly emphatic defeat. I think you can appreciate what Motherwell are trying to do. I think they'll try and be a bit tighter in the game tomorrow night. But again, I think there's frustrating elements for Steve Hamill. I think out of the last 5 league games, I think they've lost every one bar one. Other than that game up at Tannadice, they've lost every game. But there have been components within games that have been positive, that have been good. But when you're down on your luck, sometimes it can be very difficult just to find the spark that turns it around for you. I thought they were quite unlucky that game against Aberdeen. Aberdeen won 2-1. I thought there was a really strong shout for a penalty in the closing minutes of that game, the first weekend that VAR came in. But I just don't know that tomorrow night will be the kind of game where they start to pick up points.
So you've gone 3-1.
3-1. I think. I'm not sure there's any evidence to say otherwise. I'm sure Motherwell will go and try and have a decent shot at it. I think all the evidence would point to Celtic coming out of it fairly comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. Ruffy, I've got 4-1 because I think Celtic will just. I think because of the way Stephen Hamill likes his team to play.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I've went 3-1.
Yeah,
I think I've went 3-1.
You copying me?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's keeping it all tight, Ali.
Yeah, I still think, I don't know why, but I always think Celtic are vulnerable at back. I think they could be much, much better than what they are. Some of the goals they lose are very, very soft, and it was like that at Dundee United. Did you speak about that Dundee United penalty?
Yeah, we did speak about it.
Unbelievable.
You're not having it?
The reason I'm having it this time is because I think the ball was going towards the goal.
Yeah.
I think the header was going, but if it hadn't been towards the goal, I think it's scandalous. And there was 2 or 3 like that at the weekend.
Yeah, so it's not scandalous then. Is it scandalous?
A wee bit.
A wee bit scandalous. And
how can the boy
nothing about it. Whether the ball's,
what can he do?
But whether the ball's going towards goal or not,
I know.
He's blind. Like he's completely.
Yeah.
Unless you can jump with your arms down and behind your back.
They put up the rule book at the end. And they said if your arms in an unnatural position. I would love these people to go and play football when you're closing down somebody and they're going to have a shot.
Yeah.
Unless you actually go in with your hands at the back.
And that's not a natural position.
You couldn't jump.
You couldn't
like
jump.
that.
I think they have to look at that. I think that's one thing that we really would like to see change in the whole thing. But thank you very much to everyone for offering their opinion on the scoreline, on obviously the future of Giovanni van Bronckhorst and their assessment of the teams and the way they're playing and the individual players. We do like to read out as many comments as possible, and as you can see over a period of time, it's very rarely now, because of the nature of the people that we have actually contributing. We've got a good 99% of decent people on here, but every now and then if somebody steps out of line, I ban them or our staff are across it to try and ban people who can't conduct themselves in a proper manner. So apologies to anyone, whoever comes on to our feed and wants to engage with fellow fans and gets a little bit offended by people whose head's in the gutter. But hopefully every now and then, I always say, Ruffy, if you want to just shout abuse and go in the gutter, this is not the show for you. It's always good. I know there's somebody walking around Shackley Park with their pods in, listening to this podcast and thinking, I wonder what was said on that feed, but I wouldn't like to repeat some of it. All I would say is we try and keep decency at the core of it all, because here on this programme you get uncensored football news and banter as well, and it's absolutely free. So I do hope that you hit the subscribe button, download the PLZ Soccer app, because you get all the breaking news stories on there as well. And of course, every now and then, Ruffy, when we go out to these press conferences, we've got to fight to try and get good lines out of them. And then when the old guard came in at the press conference this morning, I saw Alison there with David McCarthy at the Daily Record, and I went, wow, there's been 130 years of experience there fighting against me for a good line out of a press conference.
Did they get one?
Tell you tomorrow.
I'll tell you tomorrow. It's the big
Which
one.
paper have I got to buy 5 papers?
Well, as far as Ali's concerned, you've got to buy 5 because there's 5 different checks coming in.
Go on.
Yeah, sure. The 2 of them sneaking into the room to try and ask the manager a question. Brilliant. Anyway, we've got Motherwell and Celtic out of the way. We've got Rangers and Hearts. What do you think? Give us your thoughts on what you think is going to happen there. Dundee United against Kilmarnock United. No wins in 5, bottom of the table, and back-to-back defeats against Livy and St Johnstone. For Kilmarnock, it's a tough one, isn't it? And Derek McInnes already saying sometimes they've been playing like a championship side who's not got used to the Premiership.
No, I think Dundee United will take a wee bit of encouragement for the weekend there. It's losing 2 goals, at the end of that game, you're 2 each, it's something you want to hold on to. They'll be disappointed in that. But I think Dundee United are getting a bit better. I've always said Kilmarnock will struggle. Seems to be that is the case, although some of the goals they lost midweek were a bit unfortunate. But I think I went for Dundee United to win this one.
Yeah.
I think.
Ali, what's your call?
I think I've gone for a draw. I can't actually remember.
You can't remember? I'll remind you right now, because I'm always on what you're doing, Ali, because you're either sometimes dropping off the table and then moving up. You've gone for Dundee United 1, Kilmarnock 0. So that's what you've gone for. As far as I'm concerned, Ruffy, I've got 0-0 written all over this one. I don't think there's going to be any goals.
Just don't, it's my game.
Is it your game? Yeah,
game.
absolutely. Let's hope it's 0-0, Ruffy. Yes. And Ali has to make 600 words up of complete and utter tosh.
I'd be fine with 6. It would be bigger than that.
I mean, the two sides are at the bottom end of the table. The one good point that I think Tam made yesterday, which I think is very relevant to it all, is you have Kilmarnock and St Johnstone down there and other sides who are actually experienced managers in charge. Derek McInnes at Kilmarnock, Liam Fox is at Dundee United and they're bottom of the table, and that boy has got to work out how to get something out of this side to get them away from there. And you've got Malky at Ross County.
Yeah, but I saw quite a lot in Dundee United at the weekend. You know, there's not many teams that go to Celtic Park and put in the performance that they got. Yeah, they got a penalty and the goal straight for the free kick, but I just see something in Dundee United, and I don't see it in Kilmarnock. I think Kilmarnock, Lafferty being out for a long time is a big miss for them. I still think they lose some bad goals at the back, so I know I've went Dundee United in this one, but I know what you're saying about Malky. See, that I gave the Staggies a wee bit of good fortune at the weekend, picking them to win there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about that because Jan's well happy with what you're doing at the moment, the Staggy fan who watches the programme. Can I just say, Dave Cunningham is a regular contributor to the programme as well. He watches it religiously and he's 62 today. So happy birthday to Dave, 62 years of age, who watches the programme on a regular basis. And, you know, it's amazing, Ali, the amount of people who actually, I was just wondering, do people come up and stop you and say they watched you on the show and offer their opinion to you?
It's not as polite as that.
Yeah. They do actually just come up, and it's great. Even when we were in Madrid, Ruff, it was sensational, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable, the amount of people that come, and at all ages as well.
Yes.
Not just a specific age. It was very nice.
Highlight for me, undoubtedly, the boy who asked for his photograph with me in the hotel lobby and says, "Can you ask Alan Brazil over as well?" It touched me. I thought, yeah, I'm going to ask him over. Hey, Brazil, get over here. St Mirren against St Johnstone. St Mirren, since the Celtic win, they've managed one over Livingston and then Dundee United, but last couple back-to-back defeats for St Mirren against a St Johnstone side that I tipped, and I'm going to hold my hands up here, I tipped them at the start of the season to go down, but boy, they look a different side now, don't they?
They look energised. I think they look a bit more cohesive than what they were. I think they'll be hugely encouraged by obviously the weekend win. I think maybe you're hoping to nick a point at best. I think they'll be emboldened by coming out of that one with 3 points, and I'll feel when you look at that whole area of the table, there's so little between the teams. If you can piece together any run of form, then it elevates you hugely.
I've got St Mirren 1, St Johnstone 1.
I think I'll get that as well.
Yeah.
I think I have that.
Yeah, my God, we're scalps on everybody's backside for this one. Anybody predicting any wins here? We've got two games tonight that I'm really looking forward to. Of course, one of them is
St Mirren winning.
Have you got St Mirren winning? Do you know exactly what you predicted on this, by the way?
That may explain my form this season.
Have you met Ruffy? Unbelievable. What have you got there, Ali? You've got St Mirren to win 2-1. Okay, it's going to be tight. What do you think about it all? We've got lots to talk about as well. Still to hear from Hibs boss Lee Johnson, because every week you can tell when there's a player that's attracting attention. Everybody wants to constantly ask, is there anybody in for him? And we're talking, of course, about Ryan Porteous ahead of Hibs against Ross County. Lee Johnson said, listen, when that window comes round in January, it's a foregone conclusion that some clubs will be sniffing to see if they can buy him early.
It's something that is inevitable. And if it's not, they're not doing their job properly, these clubs and these scouts. So no doubt a lot of these guys would have looked at him. Whether we can compete, financially with the likes of clubs like that, as you suggest, I think we can, nearly.
Okay, we can nearly, which means no, because quite simply he's going to be off. I mean, the only thing that I would do if I was him is I'd cash in on him as quickly as possible in January, because he's going to leave in the summer.
Yeah, well, Ryan Porteous has already said he wants to go and test himself down in England. So that's a done deal for me. I don't think Hibs have got the cash that they can offer him what somebody down in England would offer him. So I agree with you. He's going to go. So you have to get as much money as you can.
Yeah, Hibs 1 win in 5 against a Ross County side that really did have a good comeback win over St Mirren, Ali.
Yeah, I think it's been the story for all the teams just vying for that third, fourth place. The lack of consistency has cost anyone just nailing down that position. I think you would expect Hearts to go and strengthen in January. I think some of these clubs will rue their form in the opening half of the season when they couldn't sustain any kind of consistent run. I think Aberdeen have looked very impressive in flashes this season, particularly at home, but then when you look at the away form, they've been very limp on the road. I think a lot of them will feel as though there's been a chance lost in these opening weeks just to consolidate that spot.
Ruffy?
Yeah, I'm sickened by Hibs. I don't know why.
Oh, is that right?
I watched that game Friday night. I thought some of the goals they lost were incredible. To touch on the penalty dive, I thought it was. We spoke about it on the Friday. That we spoke about goalkeepers diving at strikers' feet, and they kick the ball out of the park, then they run into the goalkeeper and they get a penalty.
Yeah.
And the next one, rave, I'm going to go on a bit, is goalkeepers leaving their line. Give us a break.
Yeah.
What chance have you got?
Yeah.
You either go to one side or you go to the other. You know, what difference does it make coming off the line and going early?
I thought Marsh was hard done to, by the way.
I mean, he did come off the line, but I mean, scrap that rule. What? Give us a chance.
Yeah.
You know, the guy's got a free hit. He can put it anywhere he wants, but you're pulling up the goalkeeper because he's coming a couple inches off the line.
Yeah, you're not having it, are you? Okay, just quickly then, Hibs against Ross County. That's 9 years I had to suffer you giving it Hibs will win, and now there seems to be an edge about you, Ruffy.
I think I've went Hibs, haven't I?
Yeah, you have. 2-0. You're a disgrace. No. Sorry, Jan the Snaggy, but he's just not having it. That good run of being very, very positive towards Ross County has ended. Although I have to say, Ross County really did well, especially from those balls into the box and the goals that they managed to get. But I can't make my mind up about Hibs at times. Sometimes I go and see them and I think, at home, especially at home, you can get a wee bit out of them, and then sometimes away from home you think,
Yeah, I've gone for a Hibs win because it's at Easter Road. I would agree with you. I think they're a different team on the road. I think they're also a different team when Martin Boyle's in and fit and available, and when he's not. I think so much depends on how they play is tied to how he's playing at the same time.
Yeah.
I think Aidan McGeady was probably a big loss for them at the start of the season
and
too.
Boyle, it's a strange thing, Ali, but Boyle, is part of a 7 Scottish Premiership players included in the Socceroos side. But the manager yesterday saying, he's trying to get fit for the World Cup, but he won't be fit for us.
I know.
I'm thinking, how things have changed.
Yeah, well, I was at that game actually when he went off against St Mirren, and you could sense the apprehension right away around the ground or whether or not he would make the World Cup.
I saw you at that game. You had 2 pies that day. I thought it was ridiculous.
He would. I think he'd be hugely disappointed if he didn't.
Do you know what I love about Ali? By the way, see if you have a dig at her. She just goes like that. So it's that 1,000-yard stare as if to say, "I'll get you later. I'm not getting you on the show." It's brilliant.
Very used to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because those kids who just keep harping back at you in the morning for school. Anyway, I've got Hibs to draw 1-1. What have you got, Ali?
2-1, I think.
Yep, and Ruffy?
2-0.
Okay, 2-0. There you go. Thank you very much to so many people. And you know what I love about Ryan Porteous? He has replaced Scott Brown as the most hated man.
Pantomime villain.
Well, it really is, isn't it? Because the amount of people on here, there are some who've been abusive from time to time, but there are some who just cannot stand him for one reason or other. The Rangers fans don't like him. The Hearts fans certainly don't have much time for him either, just because he's wearing green and white, no doubt. And some, he has turned into the panto villain, Ruffy. Yeah. But when he goes, I wonder who's next to take up the reins and become the man that everyone loves to hate. You have to have one, don't you?
Yeah, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, any of the teams. I really can't.
No?
No, I can't think of anybody. Aberdeen, Hearts.
We'll try and find. Well, by the way, there it is. There's a suggestion. If you can think who is likely to replace Ryan Porteous as the panto villain, the man that you love to hate when you see him coming onto the park. Is there one at a particular club that's not Ryan
I
Porteous?
think any of the referees.
Well, it's the competition there is, can you name a referee you like, not who's the one that's not like. But Porteous is certainly somebody here that every time when you mention his name, they absolutely give him pelters. So we've got Hibs to win. Livingston against Aberdeen. Now, a couple of quotes from Jim Goodwin. I love Jim Goodwin. He's a great lad. But come on, Jim, you're having a laugh. He says, this is his great line now. Ali, tell me what you take from this, because you and I have gone to many a press conference, and Jim Goodwin says of Luis Lopez, or Duck, his line is, he says he doesn't encourage any of his players to dive.
I was on that press conference yesterday and I was all said with a straight face.
Yes, yes. But that line, Ali, tell me what you're thinking about that line. When I read that line, I thought,
we both know what that line says.
Honestly,
if you
he might not encourage his players to dive, but they do dive. He dived. It was a disgrace.
You talking about the penalty or the one in the
penalty?
box? The penalty. The one in the 18-yard box. I was waiting on him coming. Where's he gone?
He offered a more considered argument for it, because he was talking about a different angle that you'd seen it in David Marshall's name. But I've seen it. I think it's a dive.
Oh,
he's put the ball out the park.
Yeah,
he's lost control of the ball.
Yep.
So Marshall's come out and he's just left his foot in and then had a dive.
Yeah, but even see, sometimes when you leave your foot in, some strikers are really good because they throw it in.
Yeah.
But he didn't even.
It's an artificial.
It makes you look as if you've actually collided with him. But his was so blatantly not that. It was just rubbish. It wasn't even a good attempt. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm not sure if you're a manager. I'm not sure if you're ever going to have someone that comes out and says, "I'm a player dived."
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
I like Gregor Stevens here. I like Gregor Stevens' name anyway, because it always reminds me of great stories from John Gagan about Gregor Stevens, the Motherwell, Leicester and Rangers player. But Gregor says, Marshall was hard done by. Is he a mate of yours, Peter? No, he's not.
Coming off for retaking I thought he was hard done by as well.
Yeah, but hard done by with a penalty as well, was it not?
Yeah,
nonsense. Two situations there. Listen, it's all about opinions. I like Gregor offering his as well, and so many others on this one. One thing that I did agree 100% with Jim Goodwin, I'm glad he mentioned it again, it's time, and I hope some people come on the bandwagon and really it gathers pace again. It's time to get rid of artificial surfaces in the top flight. And I don't care when some people say, oh, when Rangers and Celtic lose on it, that's usually when it gathers pace. Nothing to do with that. I hate the bitch. I like it for guys like, me and my mates, when we play 11-a-sides on the AstroTurf. That's great, because it's a slow ball, alters the bounce, you don't need to run after it. But for top flight players, Ruffy, come on.
Yeah, I've been going on about it for years and years. I just don't like it. I don't like looking at it. I don't like, I know when people pick up injuries, you can get the same injuries on grass. But you just shut your eyes and think about, if you've watched an AstroTurf park, people sliding about and tripping and falling for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
It's because of the surface. I don't know whether it's the studs that they use, these blades or whatever it is, but it's just not real. It just isn't real at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't be using blades on the AstroTurf, but I tell you right now, I know the ones you're on about, the specific type of boot, but I don't like it as a surface, Ali, and I don't like it in the top flight. For look at Motherwell, the money they spent. Their park is in great condition.
I think there are very few managers or players who would say to you they like playing on Astro. I think it's a very sensible point to make, that it should be a stipulation of the top flight that if you get into the Premiership that you must have a grass surface. I think it would be well received.
We're taking it a bit further at Partick Thistle. We're turning their park into mud again.
Yeah,
The grass is not good. It's not working.
Yeah, to be fair, with all the money you have, Ruffy, you should get a hybrid pitch.
We have a beautiful park.
Yeah.
That's what's the problem.
Okay.
Every time somebody comes to play us, they love it.
Yeah, I'm sort of, they keep hammering you. Yeah, Livy, 1 loss in the last 4 games. fair play to David Martindale. He's, again, he always pulls out those results. But the Dons on the road, they've only won 4 of the last 26, Ali.
Yeah, it's an odd thing this season, the manner in which they fall apart on the road. I think they got that win at Fir Park a couple of weeks ago. I thought they could have been pegged back, as we mentioned earlier. I thought Motherwell might have had a penalty in the last minute of that game when Ricky Lammy's shirt was pulled. It'll be interesting to see how they get on. Combination of factors, obviously, 1 being on the road and 2 on the plastic pitch. I think Livingston are stubborn opponents, particularly on their own surface. I think I'm going for a draw.
Yeah, Ruffy?
Well, this is my midweek, rain lashing down.
Yeah.
No thought in the prediction at all, so I went Aberdeen 2-1.
Yeah, same here, Ruffy. There is no logic to me predicting a team that's only won 4 games out of 26 on the road, but they've won the last 4 out of the last 5 games, so I'm thinking at least they've got a bit of form about them, so who knows. Plastic pitches in the Premiership is a national embarrassment, says Brian H. And Niall Kane says, I love Fir Park, it's one of the best grass parks in the league. Can't argue with you on that one. I think a lot of people are like that, and now we're getting Panto villains. Dougie Emery, Johnny Russell, Xander Diamond. Was Xander Diamond a Panto villain? And I think Don has nailed it. Kyle Lafferty is certainly one that would be up there as a Panto villain, but I don't think Kyle will be here much longer. I think, when he eventually comes back, he might be at the twilight of his career and might want to hang up the boots in the summer. Who knows? I might be wrong, but he's certainly up there as a potential Panto villain.
He would be up there. He kind of fights a certain kind of response.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody other than that. Just quickly, a couple of things. Well done, Jason Cummings. He's in the Australia squad. I mean, honestly, if you're talking about and they were showing the full, I hate to use the whole thing, but he called himself the cum dog, and they showed his video on Sky Sports where he's actually wrestling with Grado, the full thing on the news today, and I'm thinking, really? But fair play to the boy. He's transformed himself there with Central Coast Mariners.
I would never have seen it. Never would have seen it coming.
Yeah.
And Tom Roderick never made the squad.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. You know what I'd love to know? I'd love to sit down with Tom Roderick and just go, why did you take so long and eventually, opt for West Brom? And then from there, he's lucky if he's getting picked. Now he's out of the Australia squad. Strange thing, Ruffy, isn't it?
It was strange for that one reason, for a player of that quality to all of a sudden make up your mind that you're going to leave a massive club and have no other club to go to and just hang about waiting on it happening when you knew the World Cup was coming.
Yeah. Ruffy, if we do get the Euro 2028 with UK and Ireland, Glasgow could be set for 6 matches. Hampden could be a bit of money, up to 24 million spent on it. I'd love to see them bring it in, make it a tight Hampden Park.
Yep,
that would be great, wouldn't it?
So would I've sat in the seats behind the goals, and it's not good viewing at all for the people who are there. So I think make it a bit of a cauldron like most of the stadiums we go to, the modern stadiums we go to now.
Yeah, last 2 points. Great to see Jim Duffy back as manager of Clyde. I know he's at a lot of clubs, but I think Jim's a great coach. Had a wee heart scare a couple of years ago, but just great to see him back. For me, he's a brilliant lad. Yeah, hugely experienced manager, and I think he'll go in and offer a stable hand there. And my last point before we leave, and I think it's something that we all have to consider. I wonder if we would have had to consider it if Scotland qualified for the World Cup, Ruffy. But the former FIFA president, Sepp Blatter, says the decision to award the World Cup to Qatar was a mistake. He at this point has said it's all the likes of Michel Platini and all these people who voted for Qatar to get the tournament. He says it shouldn't have been there to them. The other thing about it, which I think is an absolute disgrace, is a Qatar World Cup ambassador has said that homosexuality is damaging the mind, and LGBTQ plus any of them who are attending the tournament should accept our rules. And this is former Qatar international Khalid Salman, who was speaking to a German broadcaster, and I think that's a disgrace. Yeah, me too. I would say comments like that are just, they're dragging you back 50, 60 years. I think you'd be striving for a world that's, be what you want. Inclusive.
Does it matter?
No.
Really, does it matter? And I think I think it's tired, and I think they would fall. You would hope they would fall largely on deaf ears. I think most people would give them the lack of time that they deserve, but unfortunately there's people that are bigots that are still out in the world. Yeah,
I'm glad you've narrowed it down to bigotry. I think there's so many other areas where you could actually nail the problems that we have and the prejudices that are prevailing. And the other thing about it, Ruffy, is the last point here. So many people are just covering it up. I mean, for FIFA to say everybody should just concentrate on the football is a joke as well. It's a cover up because, as you know, money talks, and then people can throw their own principles and morals out the window.
Yeah, well, I think we saw it way back at the very, very beginning when they were voting to take it there. There was a lot of unscrupulous people about voting. Has it been brought to the fore now, but it's too late. Yeah, absolutely. Too little, too late, but we will still watch that World Cup, even though there's a fair amount of disdain towards certain aspects of it. We love our football, we love talking about it, we give you an opinion. It's uncensored football news and banter, and it's absolutely free, and you'll always get an opinion on here. Some you like, some you don't, and we actually do love your opinion as well, providing of course it's not abusive. Great to see Ali here with us. A wee bit of fashion today, obviously. I was shocked when I saw it at the press conference this morning, Ruffy. I thought,
I don't know what that says.
It tells me when you go to games that you go there as if you're ready to fight, whereas today it was all glamour for the press conference.
I don't need to know that I'm not battling against the elements when I'm in a press conference. You see me at games when I've got 15 layers on.
I know, because you're freezing. It was just the day I looked and I went, hey, wait a minute, the nightclubs are not even open yet, we're not going
too bad.
No, I've always thought that, Ali. Anyway, to be perfectly honest with you, Alison McConnell, always with us here as part of our team, absolutely fantastic. Ruffy, lucky to be here as part of our team, because of course he was sick and poorly yesterday and decided to take a day off. Anyway, great to have you with us, Ruffy. Tomorrow on the show, Tam McManus, the man who wants to replace you, is here. He'll be sitting there and he'll be raging. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, download the PLZ Soccer app. We'll see you tomorrow.